Ever notice how some guys just seem different after being single for a while? Not desperate, not bitter, just calm, centered, like they figured something out. The rest of us are still chasing. What if I told you that the longer a man navigates life without a relationship, the closer he accidentally stumbles into one of history's most powerful philosophies, one that emperors and prisoners alike have used to find freedom in the most suffocating circumstances? I discovered this connection in the most brutal way possible, and today I'm going to show you exactly how extended singlehood can transform an ordinary man into an accidental Stoic philosopher, whether he realizes it or not. The unexpected teacher. So there I was, 3 years single, after what I'd call a nuclear breakup. You know, the kind where you're picking emotional shrapnel out of your psyche for months. At first, it was the usual story: dating apps, awkward first meetings over coffee that tasted like disappointment, the occasional glimmer of hope that would flare up and die faster than a cheap match. You've been there right that moment when you're sitting across from someone, perfectly nice, perfectly attractive, and all you can think is, why am I here? What am I even looking for anymore? That's when something strange started happening. I wasn't getting more desperate, I was getting calmer, more selective, sure, but in a way that wasn't about having impossibly high standards. It was about seeing clearly for the first time. Here's what nobody tells you when you're single. Long enough, you start to separate what you actually want from what you've been programmed to want: the societal pressure, the Hollywood rom-com expectations, the timeline everyone's supposed to follow. It all starts to look like what the ancient Stoics would call externals, things outside your control that you've mistakenly attached your happiness to. And this is where it gets interesting, because without realizing it, I was walking the same path as Marcus Aurelius, who wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." But here's what I didn't expect to learn next. The indifferent paradox, you know what's genuinely messed up. The moment you stop desperately needing a relationship is exactly when you become most capable of having a good one. The Stoics had this concept they called preferred indifference, things that are nice to have but shouldn't determine your happiness or self-worth. Good health, wealth, and yes, even relationships. After about year 4 of being single, I noticed something shift in me when friends would ask, "Still single? How are you dealing with that?" My honest answer became, "Actually, I'm good." Not in that fake I'm fine way we all recognize, but genuinely good. I'd achieved what the Stoics called apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from being dominated by desires and fears. The difference is subtle but revolutionary. Let me break down what happens in the single man's mind. Around this time, remember when meeting someone new felt like an audition. Like every word, every gesture was being judged, that pressure vanishes. Conversations become genuine explorations, not performances. Remember, feeling like your worth was somehow tied to whether someone chose you that dissolves. 2, your value is intrinsic, not assigned by another person's interest. I still remember the exact moment this hit me. I was on a date with someone, objectively amazing, successful, beautiful, intelligent, the kind of person who years earlier would have had me strategizing how to win them. Instead, I found myself thinking, she's great, and if this doesn't work out, my life remains excellent. That's not indifference, that's freedom, and it changes everything. But this freedom comes with an unexpected cost: the fortress and the bridge. So here's where it gets complicated. The longer a man stays single, the more he builds what I call a Stoic fortress, a self-contained world, where he needs very little from outside to be content: daily, routine, perfected, personal finances, managed emotional regulation, mastered living space exactly as he wants it. The ancient Stoic Epictetus was on to something when he said, "Make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. This fortress is incredible for personal development, but it creates a new challenge building bridges to let others in. I'll never forget my friend Michael, 42 years old. Single for almost a decade, the man had his life dialed in perfectly beautiful apartment. Thriving career, rich friendships travelled. Whenever he wanted, he embodied what the Stoics called eudaimonia, flourishing through virtue and wisdom. Then he met Sarah, everything was going great, until she started suggesting small changes to his sacred routine, moving their date night to accommodate her work schedule, suggesting a different approach to handling finances, wanting more spontaneity in their weekends. What happened? The fortress walls went up. The very self-sufficiency that made him such a complete person became the barrier to true partnership. As Seneca wrote, "He who clings to a rock cannot move forward." The Stoic single man must learn that sometimes the greatest strength isn't in resistance, but in integration. This balance between maintaining your hard-won self-sufficiency and creating space for authentic connection. That's the advanced class in accidental Stoicism. And it's something I'm still working on every day, which brings me to perhaps the most profound transformation of all the mortality perspective. There's this exercise Stoics practice called memento mori. Remember, you will die. Sounds dark, I know. But stay with me, because this changes everything about how a long-term single man approaches relationships after 5 years on my own. I had this jarring realization while visiting my grandfather in hospice care. As I sat beside him holding his hand, I realized he wasn't thinking about his career achievements or possessions. He was remembering connections, moments of love, friendship, and meaningful bonds. That's when it hit me. The Stoic perspective on relationships isn't about need or dependence. It's about conscious choice, about saying, I know I can be complete alone. And yet I choose connection not from lack, but from abundance. This mortality perspective strips away the trivial concerns that plague early dating. What will my friends think of her? Is she impressive enough on paper? Do we look good together in photos? Instead, it focuses you on what matters. Does this person help me become my best self? Do we face life's challenges? As worthy allies, can we create meaning together? I started asking different questions on dates, not the usual resume exchange, but things like, what gives your life meaning? And what's something you've changed your mind about recently? Questions that reveal character values and wisdom, what the Stoics would call the only true goods. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, the happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. The longer a man stays single while developing his inner world, the clearer his thoughts become about what partnership truly means, the paradoxical preparation. Here's the ultimate irony and the secret I promised to share with you at the beginning. The longer a man practices this accidental stoicism of singlehood, the more prepared he becomes for a relationship of extraordinary depth. Not just any relationship, not the kind based on neediness or completing each other or escaping loneliness. Something rarer, a partnership of two whole people who choose each other daily with eyes wide open. I call it the paradoxical preparation by mastering the art of not needing a relationship. You become capable of having one that's actually worth having when you've learned to manage emotions rather than be ruled by them, when you've distinguished between what you can and cannot control, when you've built a life of meaning on your own terms. You enter relationships differently. You bring clarity instead of confusion, purpose instead of need, stability instead of chaos. Anthropologist Margaret Mead once said something fascinating about this. When asked about the earliest sign of civilization, she didn't point to tools or weapons. She pointed to a healed femur, a thigh bone that had broken and mended in the animal kingdom. She explained, if you break your leg, you die. You can't run from danger, hunt for food, or reach water. But a healed femur showed someone had cared for the injured person until they recovered. That's what evolved relationships look like. Two people who don't need each other to survive, but choose to help each other thrive. The accidental Stoic doesn't enter relationships to escape suffering, but to create meaning alongside another sovereign individual. As Epictetus said, he is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has. If this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your story. In the comments, are you accidentally practicing Stoicism in your single life? Or have you found other philosophies that guide you? Subscribe for more explorations of modern manhood through ancient wisdom. And remember, as the Stoics would say, the obstacle is the